So let's
Right.
dive right in. When you say foggy glasses make it hard to see, sounds like common sense, but what are we talking about here?
It's basically because, especially with, well, let me say this. With the millennials especially, the dating applications on the smartphones have changed the whole marketplace for dating. And what people look for can be very myopic or very simplistic. They go, well, she's cute or he's cute, and right age, right location, let's date. And what I mean by foggy glasses is if you had a clear lens, a clear vision, you'd actually have a lot more keys you look for in a partnership than just what's convenient or what's the first three. In my work with my clients and what I've learned myself is that it's important to have a clear picture of what you want because, as you mentioned about when you've seen people splitting up into seminars, without having common language, that's a key piece too. Do you understand each other? Do you speak the same language? Do you live in the same conversation? And can you grow together? And so for me, relationships are more than just, okay, they're cute, let's go out, because that's what drives a lot of people's thoughts about relationship, and they wonder why it doesn't work. So the foggy glasses means that we're not really looking clearly at what we're dating. We've kind of got this thing of, well, cute enough and funny enough, but you don't know about the history and their patterns and all the stuff they bring to the relationship, which is the next piece we'll talk about, all those experiences that may not fit where you want to go. So the foggy glasses is a dangerous thing because it's important to know what you really want. And it's so tempting because of the smartphone apps and the websites and all the other things out there that you can just meet somebody cute and like, that'll work. And it won't.
Well, and it's interesting because I also heard, and I also was looking at another story, and they were talking about, basically how Tinder is changing the face of dating, and the fact that, now a lot of, millennials and even the next generation are growing up where it's becoming so commonplace. You basically look at an app, swipe through, and have multiple, whether they're actual sexual partners or just multiple partners, and not really become completely invested. It's almost kind of the ironic thing, Barry, is are we almost getting back to, and this is not foggy glasses, but I got to ask this, are we almost getting back to the 60s and the free love movement? I mean, is it's kind of, it's kind of oddly, I'll say similar, only with a technology twist on it.
It is easier because there's less focus and again, less intention because I mean, I look at relationships as being very important, but a lot of people choose because of the other apps and things out there for dating and just having someone to play with or have sex with, the commitment level and the value is not as implanted in the relationship as it would otherwise be. So yes, like the 60s where there was low attachment and just playing, having fun, that's definitely happening with Tinder and some of the smartphone apps that are propagating that behavior, yes.
Interesting. So we've got steampunk coming back as as a way to dress and everything, and we've got the '60s. Hey, I've got the long hair, so we're going back to the days of hippies.
I've given up on that.
Hey, you're the smart one. Unlike some other people in the public eye who've been recently kind of bashed. I won't talk about who decided not to give up on the long hair and still have the horseshoe thing going on. It's like okay, gotta always wear the bandana. But anyway, so as far as foggy glasses go, I gotta ask you this one thing, because when I hear foggy glasses, when I hear what you talk about, one of the things I think of is this super holistic view where everything, including down to the base level of what type of music and what type of what type of music you like and what type of food you like. When you talk about foggy glasses and when you talk about what you really need to start to get to know about people, do you take it down to that, I'll call it that very what I would consider minuscule level, or do you keep it up at the core value level to say, look, here are the 10 things that I have to have in a relationship that I can't do without, and if they don't happen to like the same type of pasta sauce as I do, I'm not going to hold that against them. Where do you kind of draw that line?
I'd start with the bigger qualities. In fact, again, back to my book, I have a couple of things in there about you got to know what your deal breakers are and your must-haves. And so, yes, that's key things to have is you got to know, first of all, what it is that doesn't work for you, period. And it can be pretty serious stuff, but also what you must have in the relationship. So I have had partial, now I'm not a vegetarian, but I've dated women who had been vegetarians, and it can work and sometimes it doesn't. And I've proven it both ways. Yeah. So there are certain things where some things could look big and not, and some things that are not big can be. So it's important to have qualifications because if you happen to be someone who loves peace and quiet, but your partner loves rock and roll 24/7, that might not work. So you got to know what you really want. And the Foggy Glasses pieces for me, in fact, my clients, the first week I worked with them, I had to make a list of everything in their past relationships that didn't work. All those things that they didn't like, didn't want, had to put up with, were frustrated by. And that becomes one side of the sheet. And then on the other side of the sheet, I have them write down the positives of all the things that would they become if they did have what they wanted. So then have a baseline to build from when they want to create a list and a vision of what they want to attract.
Excellent. So just to repeat, you have them basically you have the I'll call it the core values, that top level that really, it's kind of like the must-haves and then the I really hope they have these, and then kind of the okay, these are not important, that these are kind of the it'd be cool to have, but if they don't, I can kind of deal with it. It's not that it's not that big of a deal.
Yes, exactly. So it's having that piece, and so it's important to have understanding of what is, what seriously is important that you cannot live without, and some things that you say, you know what, I can work with that. And it's being understanding, because it could be pets, it could be maybe an allergy to cats, and if your partner has a cat, and I've been there before, it was challenging to be over at her place because I'd start sneezing all the time. So there's certain things that say, this doesn't work, and it's not from a point of view that's wrong. You're just saying that's for me. So again, having those true values assigned.
And that is epic. And that's why you as a viewer, if you're going through a heartbreak or maybe on the verge of it or are dealing with it right now, you got to get in touch with Barry, because most coaches I know will sit there and not separate the multiple pieces when they talk about your next relationship. They'll sit there and say, okay, you got to have this one entire list of must-haves, and even if it's a type of music and everything else, you really need to have that down. And Barry, you sound like much more of a progressive coach that you split up into multiple areas, because realistically, there's things that, love does conquer a lot of things. And when it's the type of pasta sauce somebody likes, love should be able to conquer that. If it can't, you're in trouble. I'm going to tell you right now, if you fight over the pasta sauce, if you're watching this and you're fighting over the pasta sauce, you're in trouble, because it ain't that important. Trust me.
And it isn't about the pasta sauce.
That's the truth. It's not. It's not, and that's where a lot of people. I'm sure you deal with this all the time. A lot of people get in that mode where they start arguing and they start really being upset about the little things, and they think it's about the little things,
right?
And they don't realize that, man, if you're starting to fight over the little things, get to see somebody like Barry today, because you in big trouble. That's the
right. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, because it sounds like we're about to get into the iceberg, because I think a lot of the iceberg behind you can breed those little troubles. But I guess the last thing I want to ask you about real quick is when you're talking about Foggy Glasses, and it's just going to do a real quick answer. When you have people define that list, do you find it's difficult to try and convince them that when they go out and find the next person, that they shouldn't feel like what they've written down that list is actually bashing their ex, that all they're doing is saying, look, I've grown, and I'm not saying my ex had or didn't have any of these qualities, I'm just saying this is what I want in my life? Well,
the thing is that Foggy Glasses is where you're going, and I'll get to the other part in a minute. That if you're looking at your ex, then you're not looking where you're going. You're walking backwards. So you really got to focus on what you really do want, and it's not about them, it's about you. And that's the truth, is that your ex hopefully showed you things about yourself that you had to shift. Like, oh, I didn't choose that, that was my learning, I want to choose it this time. Thank you to my ex for that one. And literally from a place of peace.
Exactly, and that's epic. Well, it's funny, because we'll probably talk about this later. Maybe I'll have you on for a second episode. We got to get into the iceberg behind you.
To watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.